My family favored my ex-girlfriend over me, so I turned around and left. They regretted it later. My name is Harlan Weber, and I'm 34 years old. Up until the last Thanksgiving, I would have told you my family was like an old, creaky house, weathered by time, filled with character, and a little drafty in places, but still standing. We weren't perfect, but we had roots. We were bound by history, habit, and that specific kind of loyalty that convinces you to keep attending family dinners even when you leave them emotionally hoarse. I thought we were one of the lucky ones. For 7 years, I shared my life with Eliza Mearns. She was the kind of person who made everything feel like spring, thoughtful, energetic, emotionally articulate in ways I often wasn't. She didn't walk into rooms, she arrived. My mother used to say, Eliza is the daughter I never had, which I used to think was sweet until I realized what it might have meant about me. She was close with my cousins. My aunt invited her to monthly brunches. My grandmother crocheted her a Christmas stocking after just 2 holidays together. That was a kind of silent family canonization. She belonged. Eliza and I were good together until we weren't. The decline was slow, imperceptible at first. Like watching the color fade from a favorite photograph. It wasn't about betrayal or bitterness. There were no shouted arguments or broken plates. What wore us down was divergence. Eliza wanted a family soon. I wasn't sure I wanted children at all. It wasn't just fear or immaturity, it was a real, thoughtful uncertainty I had carried with me for years. We tried to bridge the gap. We went to therapy. We made lists. We asked hard questions. And after months of trying, crying, compromising, and revisiting old wounds, she left. She didn't slam the door or storm out. She packed a single suitcase, placed her copy of the apartment key on the counter, and said, I don't think I can wait anymore, Harlan. Then she hugged me for too long and walked away. And I let her. That was my sin, apparently. I didn't chase her. I didn't beg. I didn't tell my family right away. I needed to sit with the silence, to feel the echo of her absence before trying to explain it to people who had turned her into a kind of collective emotional pet. Unbeknownst to me, Eliza went straight to my mother's house. She arrived tear-streaked, trembling, and said she didn't know why I'd given up. She told them I just stopped trying. That she had wanted to fight, and I'd walked away. 3 days later, my mom called me. Not to ask how I was doing. Not to get clarity. She didn't even seem interested in the fact that my world had just fallen apart. Her voice was sharp. I hope you know how deeply you've hurt her, Harlan. Eliza deserves better than that. Then she hung up. Click. No, how are you? No, what happened? Just condemnation. A week later, I got a group text from my Aunt Veda, confirming the annual Christmas gathering at Grandma Ruth's house. Same address. Same 5 p.m. start. Same ritual like clockwork. I hadn't yet decided if I'd go. Being around everyone, pretending I was fine, still felt like rubbing salt in a fresh wound. But then I saw something strange. Eliza was included in the group thread. My ex. Who was no longer family by any traditional standard. No one even acknowledged it. So I asked. Just a simple question, was it intentional to include Eliza on this? Within 5 minutes, my Uncle Nolan, always the first to speak before thinking, responded. She's still family to us, Harlan. Don't make this awkward. That phrase. Don't make this awkward. It looped in my brain for the rest of the night. Not because of what it said, but what it meant. I was the discomfort. I was the storm they were trying to outmaneuver. Not the man who just lost his partner. Not the son. Not the cousin. Just the variable threatening their peace. I told myself not to take it personally. Maybe it was just clumsy wording. Maybe they didn't realize how hurtful that was. And then my mother called again. Hi, honey, she said, voice sweet and sticky. Listen, we know things are a little different this year, but, well, we'd love to have you at Christmas. Just, only if you can promise not to stir things up. We want it to be peaceful. Especially for the kids. Peaceful for the kids. The implication was loud and clear. I could attend if I could guarantee I wouldn't ruin the atmosphere. If I'd behave. If I could tuck my pain into my coat pocket and pretend none of this hurt. Later that night, my cousin Marin, always the most tactless of the bunch, messaged me privately. FYI, you're not on Grandma's place card list this year. They didn't want to assume. Eliza is sitting between your mom and Aunt Veda. She followed it up with, it's just easier that way. Easier. Like I was a complication, not a member of the family. I sat on my couch for hours that night. My apartment felt cavernous. Quiet in the way only a heartbroken home can feel. And then I laughed. Not bitterly. Not hysterically. But a quiet, breathless kind of laugh, the kind that escapes when something absurd finally clicks into place. For years, I had supported this family. I had paid off my parents' mortgage when my dad's liver failed and he couldn't work. I had bailed out my cousin Nolan's landscaping company during the early pandemic closures. I had co-signed a vehicle loan for Caleb when his credit wouldn't qualify him for a $9,000 used sedan. I had quietly picked up dinner tabs, sent anonymous checks when a relative couldn't pay rent, and gifted birthday vacations. And now, I was being told not to make it awkward. So the next morning, I replied to my mom's message with a single sentence. I'd rather be alone than pretend this is what family means. Then I turned off my phone. I didn't expect silence to be so loud. No one reached out the day I turned off my phone. Or the next. Or the one after that. The same family that used to flood group chats with dog memes and unsolicited casserole recipes suddenly had nothing to say. But I had a list. A quiet one. A mental tally of every string still tied between me and the people who now seemed to value Eliza's presence more than my own. I began with my brother. A few years ago, Caleb had asked me to co-sign a loan for a used Toyota. He had just lost his job at the local utility company and was on the brink of having his old car repossessed. I didn't hesitate. I drove him to the dealership. I signed the papers. When he missed a few payments earlier this year, I quietly covered them. I didn't tell him I didn't want him to feel ashamed. That was my first thread. I logged into the lender's portal and removed myself as co-signer. It didn't cancel the loan. It simply transferred the risk back where it belonged. The system sent him an automated notice of the change and flagged his account for review, given the late payments. It was a simple click. Less than 3 minutes. But it felt monumental. Next was the mortgage. 2 years ago, when my father fell seriously ill and my parents' savings thinned out, I started covering the house payments. Not in a dramatic way. I didn't show up with briefcases of cash or make grand declarations. I just set up a recurring transfer from my business account and let the bank draft it each month. Quietly. Consistently. That was my second thread. I canceled the wire transfer. The next payment was due January 6th. I didn't bother to warn them. Then came the cafe. My uncle Nolan ran a small coffee shop downtown called the Cedar Mug. He had dreamed it into existence with the help of a modest inheritance, but poor planning and a string of bad reviews almost shuttered it during the pandemic. When his lease was on the brink of default, I stepped in. I signed a revised rental agreement in my name and absorbed part of the overhead to keep it afloat. That was my third thread. I contacted the property manager and told them I wouldn't be renewing the lease when it expired in March. I didn't explain. I didn't argue. Just a formal message ending an informal deal. I didn't tell anyone. I just waited. Christmas Eve arrived, and I sat alone in my apartment, curled up with a book I couldn't focus on, while a light snow fell outside. I wasn't sad. Not in the way I expected. I was heavy, like wet wool. But I wasn't falling apart. Then I made the mistake of opening Instagram. Eliza had posted a photo. She stood in my mother's kitchen, wearing a floral apron, the same one my mom used to wear when she baked holiday cookies. They were laughing, side by side, a flour-dusted countertop in front of them. The caption read, "Back where I belong. #family traditions." I stared at it for a full minute. Then I closed the app. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I didn't write dramatic texts I'd never send. I opened my notebook instead, the one I'd started years ago to track ideas for side projects. On the last blank page, I wrote a list titled, "Everything I've Done That They Forgot." I listed the time I loaned my cousin Adrian money to pay for a traffic court fine. The time I covered my Aunt Veda's medical bill copay when her insurance denied her. The time I drove 80 miles round trip to pick up Grandma Ruth from the hospital after her surgery because no one else was free. By the time I was done, the list stretched across 2 pages. It was never about the money. It was about how easily they had rewritten me as the problem. On December 29th, someone cracked. I was brushing my teeth when my buzzer rang. I ignored it at first. Then the intercom buzzed again. I answered. "Harlan, sweetheart, it's me, Aunt Veda." I froze. I brought some of those maple cookies you like. Your uncle's a wreck. He said you're pulling out of the lease and he doesn't know what to do. I said nothing. Through the second-floor window, I watched her standing by the front steps, a plastic container in one hand, a knit scarf looped around her neck. She kept glancing up like she expected me to call down. Like this was a sitcom, and a heartfelt monologue was coming. I didn't say a word. After a few minutes, she walked away, her steps slow, uncertain. That night, I opened a spreadsheet and entered every family financial favor from the last 5 years. I added totals. Dates. Whether anything had ever been repaid, most hadn't. I wasn't building a case. I was building clarity. On December 30th, I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. 5 minutes later, a text arrived. Harlan, it's Caleb. We need to talk. I'm at Mom's. Please, can we meet? I didn't reply. He called again that night and left a message. Look, I didn't know what Mom and Eliza were doing, okay? I thought you were fine with it. You didn't say anything. Please just call me back. They're freaking out. That was the part that stood out. They're freaking out. Not, I'm sorry. Not, I should have checked on you. Just panic because the support system they relied on without acknowledgement was shifting. And not in their favor. New Year's Eve came. I sat alone on my balcony, wrapped in a blanket, nursing a glass of spiced cider while fireworks popped across the horizon. Down below, the city cheered and sang and kissed strangers at midnight. At 12:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was a message from Grandma Ruth. I never meant to hurt you. Can we talk tomorrow? I stared at the message for a long time. She was the one who used to bake me peanut butter cookies with chocolate chips on top whenever I came home from college. She never took sides. Never raised her voice. But this year, she had said nothing. I closed the message without replying. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel responsible for mending what they broke. I felt something close to peace. Not loud peace. Quiet peace, the kind that comes when you finally let go of the weight someone else handed you. January 2nd began before sunrise with a knock. It was just past 7:30 a.m. when I heard the slow, almost reluctant tapping. I didn't move at first. I stood in the hallway, watching the morning light begin to press through the blinds. The second knock was firmer. Familiar. I opened the door. It was my mother. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her coat was buttoned wrong. Her hair was pinned sloppily in a way that made her look like a younger version of herself, rushed and uncomposed, like the day I broke my arm when I was 9 and she had driven me to urgent care in her house slippers. Harlan, she said, voice soft. I didn't reply. She clutched her purse like it held all the right things to say. I'd been thinking about everything. About Eliza. About what happened. Still, I said nothing. She stepped forward slightly. We didn't mean to hurt you. She is part of this family. We didn't want to lose her too. So you chose to lose me instead? I asked, my tone calm. Measured. She flinched. That's not fair. It's accurate. She exhaled. The kind of exhale that carried guilt, or at least the recognition of it. You told us you needed time. Honestly, I thought you'd come around. I thought you just needed space. I needed support, I said, flatly. But I didn't realize support came with terms and conditions. She looked like she wanted to cry, but I didn't reach for her. I didn't soften. Please, she said, just tell us what you want. And there it was. Not, how can we make this right? Not, how are you doing, really? Just, what do you want? As if this were a negotiation. I looked at her, and for the first time in months, I saw her clearly, not as my mother, not as the woman who once sewed a button on my coat at 6 a.m. before a field trip, but as someone who had stopped seeing me as a person with feelings, and started seeing me as a fixture. A provider. I don't want anything, I said. Not anymore. She opened her mouth. Closed it again. And I shut the door, quietly. Later that afternoon, I received an email from the leasing office for the Cedar Mug. Subject, renewal request from co-tenant Nolan P. I read it once. Twice. Then I hit reply. Decline renewal. My legal interest in the lease expires March 31st. Please direct further inquiries to Nolan directly. That same evening, I logged into my business account to verify that the final mortgage payment had been stopped. It had. Then, on a whim, I checked something I had all but forgotten, a shared family business account I had opened under my LLC's umbrella years ago. It was meant to help coordinate group investments, future planning, family dreams, little ventures we once fantasized about building together. The account had sat mostly dormant for the past year. Except, it hadn't. There, among the usual balance updates, was a withdrawal. Large. Just under 5 figures. Label, event prep. Date, 2 months ago. Same day Eliza had posted on social media about a weekend retreat with the women in my family. One of those healing through sisterhood weekends that always ended with matching bracelets and spa robes. The authorization name? My mother. I sat very still. I hadn't given her access. Not directly. Someone must have logged in from a saved device. Maybe Eliza. Maybe my cousin Marin. It didn't matter. The money was in my name. Tied to my business. Taken without consent. I opened my email and started typing. Subject, unauthorized withdrawal. Happy New Year. Please advise how you intend to return the $9,432.67 withdrawn from the family trust account on November 11th. This was not authorized. If I do not hear from you by Friday, I will escalate the matter to our shared bank's fraud department. Regards, Harlan. I attached the transaction receipt, highlighted the unauthorized transfer, and hit send. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. I didn't answer. Another call. Then a flood of messages. From my mother. It's not what you think. Let's just talk first. We didn't mean to go behind your back. Please don't do anything rash. This will tear the family apart. Is that what you want? That one made me laugh. Not because it was funny, but because of the complete detachment from reality. As if I was the one swinging the axe. As if they hadn't already dismantled everything. As if my pointing it out was somehow the real offense. I didn't reply. Instead, I printed the transaction history, included a formal note unauthorized activity. Investigation requested. And mailed a copy to the bank's fraud office. I CC'd the branch manager I had known for over a decade. Nothing dramatic. No screaming. No threats. Just process. Quiet. Intentional. I wasn't bluffing. The account was tied to my LLC. The funds were mine. The family had enjoyed the benefits of my generosity, but now they had crossed a legal line. The following days were eerily quiet. No calls. No guilt-laced voicemails. Just silence. Until January 5th. That was the day the mortgage bounced. And with it, the first domino. On the evening of January 5th, I received a phone call from a number I hadn't seen light up my screen in over a year. My parents' landline. The house phone. I knew what it meant before I picked up. I let it ring twice, 3 times, then answered. Harlan, came my father's voice, coarse, composed, but heavy in that way only a man who feels the ground shifting under his feet can sound. Dad, I said. There was a pause. A long one. I just got off the phone with the bank. Right, I said, expressionless. They probably want their money. He inhaled, slow and sharp. What are you doing? It wasn't an angry question. It was a tired one. An astonished one. Like he hadn't thought I was capable of saying no. I'm doing exactly what you all told me to do, I replied. I'm not making things awkward. Another pause. So this is about Eliza. I closed my eyes. Of course. No, I said. This is about everything. This is about years of being the one everyone calls when something breaks. Years of being the one who fixes things, pays for things, carries the burden so no one else has to. He said nothing. This is about how you all got comfortable taking from me without ever wondering what it was costing me. Without ever asking if I was okay. So now you're punishing us? He asked. No. I'm just stepping back. And letting you all manage the consequences of your choices. There was a rustle on the line, a shift in posture I could almost hear. You're making a mistake, he said finally. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't flinch. You made the mistake, I replied. When you told me not to make things awkward at Christmas. When you gave my seat to Eliza. When you stopped seeing me as your son and started seeing me as a problem to manage. He didn't respond. Just silence. Then the line went dead. 3 hours later, my cousin Marin called. I ignored it. Then Caleb. Then Aunt Veda. Then Marin again. It was as if a signal had gone out. Not a word from any of them in weeks, and now the alarm bells were ringing. But not for emotional reasons. Not for regret. They were scrambling because the safety net they'd grown used to was being pulled away. The mortgage was unpaid. The cafe lease was ending. The business account had been flagged for investigation. And I hadn't even revealed the final piece. That came January 7th. The call came from the cafe's landlord. He was a straightforward guy, direct, no fluff. Harlan, just wanted to give you a heads up. Your uncle came in today, trying to renew the lease. I had to tell him you'd already stepped away. I thanked him for the call. Before he hung up, he added, one of the bakery reps mentioned something about financial irregularities. Guess word's getting around. Didn't know if you wanted to be looped in. That was the first time I realized the rumors were starting. And I didn't stop them. I wasn't malicious. I didn't spread anything. But I didn't lift a finger to protect them either. They had enjoyed the comfort of silence for years. When I covered for them, carried them, kept their reputations intact. They didn't ask questions then. They didn't offer gratitude. Now they were on their own. That same night, I got an email from Eliza. No subject line. No greeting. Just a wall of text. I didn't know they were using that account. Your mom told me you were okay with it, that it was still your family too. I just wanted to feel like I belonged. I didn't mean for any of this to spiral like it did. Please believe me. I stared at the message. She hadn't apologized. Not for the unauthorized withdrawal. Not for the photos. Not for the caption that read back where I belong. She didn't ask how I was. Didn't acknowledge the cost of her silence. Her message was not about accountability. It was about escape. I archived it without replying. Later that night, I walked downstairs to the mailbox and found a letter tucked among junk flyers and credit card offers. It was from my grandmother. Handwritten. Her script had always been elegant. She had once been a secretary in the town clerk's office, the kind of woman who wore lipstick even to answer the door. But this letter, the penmanship wavered, shook slightly. It read, Harlan, I don't know how we got here. I don't blame you for stepping away. I want you to know that I've always been proud of you even when I didn't say it. You've carried more than your share. I stayed quiet when I should have spoken. I'm sorry. If you don't come back, I'll understand. But I hope you do. Love, Grandma Ruth. That letter nearly broke me. Not because it fixed everything. But because it was the first honest thing anyone had said to me in months. She didn't try to justify. She didn't blame. She saw me. I sat on the couch, letter in my lap, and wept. Not loud. Not dramatically. Just tears, steady, soft, honest. But I didn't call her. Not yet. I still had one more thing to do. Back when Eliza and I were discussing building a future together, I had worked with my accountant to start drafting a family trust. I'd had a successful exit from a small tech company and wanted to do something long-term with the money. Something meaningful. The plan had been generous as college funds for my cousin's kids, stipends for my parents in retirement, emergency grants for relatives going through hardship. The documents had been prepared. But the trust had never been finalized. The funds still sat in a holding account. And every person who had excluded me, belittled me, silenced me. They were all listed as future beneficiaries. I opened the draft trust agreement on my laptop. One by one, I deleted names. Caleb. Aunt Veda. Uncle Nolan. Marin. Even Grandma Ruth, for now, though her letter stayed beside me the whole time. Then I typed a single name in. Clara June Peterson, my goddaughter. Marin's baby girl. Just turned 2. Too young to know the politics. Too innocent to deserve consequences. The only one who had looked at me on Thanksgiving with wide eyes and said, "Hi, Uncle Har," like I was the most important person in the room. I saved the file. Then I turned off my laptop. My phone buzzed again. A final attempt. This time from my mom. I let it ring. Then I powered the phone down. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I was free. It was a cold, windless morning when I woke and decided I was done watching from the sidelines. January 10th. Exactly 6 weeks since Eliza left. Just over a month since I stopped pretending I was part of something that no longer saw me. The final piece clicked into place not with a scream or explosion, but with the gentle pressure of truth settling in my chest like a stone at the bottom of a clear lake. It was time. I dressed carefully. Not in sweats. Not in something neutral or invisible. I put on a suit. A dark navy one I hadn't worn since a pitch meeting 2 years ago. Back when I still believed that success could buy acceptance. That if I just did enough, gave enough, showed up enough, they'd keep me in the circle. This time, I wasn't wearing it to win anyone over. I wore it because I wanted to walk into my parents' house without apology. The drive took exactly 22 minutes. I didn't listen to music. The only sound was the thrum of tires on pavement and the quiet rhythm of my breathing. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked the same. Overgrown hedges. Faded paint. The same wind chime that had irritated me for years tapped softly in the wind. But I had changed. The door opened before I even knocked. My mother stood in the doorway, face pale, eyes swollen. Behind her, my father lingered in the hallway, arms crossed, posture rigid. "Harlan," she said, as though we had just spoken yesterday. "Mom," I answered. She stepped aside. I walked in. The living room hadn't changed, same beige couch, same dusty bookshelf, same framed family photos. Except one was missing. The photo of Eliza and me at my cousin's wedding. A small, blank spot on the mantel now lived where it used to be. Maybe they had taken it down. Maybe Eliza had asked for it. I didn't ask. We sat. They didn't. My father stood at the edge of the rug, like he was a guest in his own home. "I don't even know where to start," he muttered, rubbing the back of his neck. "Try the beginning," I said. "Maybe start with how you chose someone else over your own son." "It wasn't like that," my mother insisted. "It was exactly like that," I said, calm. "You gave her my seat at Christmas. You told me not to cause a scene. And none of you asked how I was doing. But you took smiling pictures with her in the kitchen." My father opened his mouth. I raised a hand. "I'm not here to rehash everything," I said. "I've already said what I need to say. I came to tell you where things stand." Now they looked at me. Really looked. Not the fixer. Not the golden goose. Not the family investment fund. Just Harlan. "I've pulled out of the mortgage," I began. "The bank's been notified. If you want to keep this house, you'll need to restructure the loan yourselves." Dad's jaw twitched. But he said nothing. "I've dissolved the shared business account. All transfers to the cafe lease are cancelled. Uncle Nolan will need to secure a new agreement under his own name." My mother swallowed hard. Her voice cracked. "Harlan, we didn't mean to." "I know," I interrupted. "You didn't think I ever would." They exchanged a glance. Panic flickered behind their eyes. "You all thought the texts, the voicemails, the letter from Grandma, it would wear me down. That I'd go back to being what I always was, the one who carried the weight." They didn't deny it. "And the money," I added. "The withdrawal from the business account labeled event prep? That was unauthorized. I've reported it." Her mouth fell open. "Please," she said. "It was just one mistake." "No," I replied. "It was a pattern. This was just the first one I drew a line under." My father stepped forward finally. "You're blowing this out of proportion." I stood. "No," I said. "I'm finally seeing it in proportion. For the first time." They both looked older than I remembered. Smaller. As if the room had grown, or they had finally stopped towering over me in my mind. My mother's voice trembled. "Why are you doing this? We're your family." I leaned forward, calm. "No. You were my obligation. 4 years. And I fulfilled that. But when I needed support, not money, not help, just presence, you gave me rules. Conditions. A warning to behave." She sobbed quietly. My father said nothing. I didn't soften. "This is the last time we'll speak for a while," I said. "Not because I hate you, but because I'm learning to love myself more than I fear being alone." I turned and walked out. They didn't stop me. And I didn't look back. Weeks passed. Then months. The fraud claim was resolved. The money was repaid, likely borrowed from an old friend of my dad's. The Cedar Mud closed its doors in March. Replaced by a minimalist bakery with soft jazz and honey lavender scones. I walked past it once. The windows were clean. The air smelled like cinnamon and new beginnings. It felt like closure. Marin reached out once. A photo of her daughter, Clara, on her birthday. I replied. She looks beautiful. She's the only one I'm leaving anything to. No response. Uncle Nolan tried to save face, told anyone who'd listen I turned my back on family. But no one really believed it. The cafe had been bleeding money for years. I had just stopped the hemorrhaging. And Eliza? She moved to Charleston. Got engaged again. A mutual friend mentioned it at a dinner I almost didn't attend. I didn't care. I still had the letter from Grandma Ruth. I framed it. Hung it on the wall in my home office. Not because it fixed anything, but because it reminded me that someone had seen me, even if too late. Eventually, the silence became normal. Not cold, just quiet. The kind of peace that comes when you stop answering calls that used to feel obligatory. When your phone buzzes and you don't flinch. I started building again. Not for them. For me. And on my birthday, my first one alone in over a decade, I got one card. No return address. No name. Just a single sentence. You were always the strongest one. Thank you for finally choosing you. I smiled. And for the first time in years. It wasn't bittersweet. It was just free. Thank you for watching the video. Like it if you watched the video to the end and don't forget to subscribe. Have a nice day.